Croeso and welcome to Cardiff Referee Society's meeting with FAW Tier 1 referee Dr Alex McInch. The theme of the presentation is on dealing with pressure and strategies that can be used to help improve mental health.
And guys online as well. I might come out of shot a little bit while I'm changing the slides and everything. My name's Alex, proud member of the Cardiff Referee Society. Val was saying then, like, my route into refereeing was a funny one, really, because I used to play. I wasn't too bad as a player, central midfielder. As Val said, like to run, try and referee the game when I was a player. So I suppose it was always in me to eventually make a leap of faith. But I think that wasn't my direct route into reffing. Actually, I finished playing, like my children came along. I went from playing to coaching. And with the coaching, I wasn't really enjoying it. Stood on the side, and it was all right. We were winning games and losing the odd one here or there, and I was getting results and all the rest of it, but it just wasn't the same. And as Val sort of alluded to there, I always had a good relationship, stroke rapport with referees, and I just had a bit of a light bulb moment over one Christmas back in 2013, and thought I'm going to do the referees course. So took a leap of faith in that year. My referees instructor was a guy called Martin New he's English originally, Martin. I think he's from over the Severn Bridge, but he lives Lantwick Major Way. He took the course. He's a lovely guy. He refereed me as well. And the course was at the Goal Centre. It was face-to-face back then, 8 weeks or so. You just learn the laws of the game. You just learn the laws to pass an exam. That's it. There's no clips. There's no discussion. It's just very black and white, A to B to C. You work through the laws over the 8 weeks. You sit your exam, and then your exit pathway then is you register with your local league. And my league was the Cardiff Combination League. I know there's a district league as well, but I registered with the Combination League because I wanted more of a challenge. And my honourable colleague, Mr. Fish, we've officiated games together. I ran the line to John on many an occasion when I was coming up, when I first started. And it was strange. I remember my first game like it was yesterday, because I passed my exam the week before and I'd registered. It was like halfway through the year, the course. So I had half a season essentially. So I registered, and my first game was at Lanisham Park in the north of Cardiff. And I did Lanisham Wanderers seconds against Catay's Cons seconds. So bearing in mind, I'd always played at a half-decent standard. I'd never seen men's grassroots football before. So you walk over, I think they were smoking something that smelt lovely whilst they were putting the nets up. You can join the dots up there. The grass was quite long, bare 11. I thought, oh, here we go then. And I had my nice new kit on and all the rest of it. I was going to stamp my authority on the game. And I always remember there was about 30 minutes left. We were only 2/3 of the way through the game. And both teams, Catay's were winning 3-0. Both teams were asking me to blow up for full time so they could get in the boozer. It's like, oh, come on, we only get out once a week. Come on, we want it. I was just astonished by it. But it was a great game. And you're thrown into the Lions Den straight away, really. But I remember it like it was yesterday. I didn't get everything right. I don't get everything right even now. No one does. There's no such thing as a perfect refereeing performance. But I came away feeling satisfied. No one had died. I didn't get any aggro. I had a few appeals here and there for decisions, but nothing untoward. They were well within their rights to. I had 22 handshakes at the end of the game. I was hooked straight away. And I never thought beyond my wildest dreams I'd get hooked in like I did. And I never looked back. And as soon as that, I just wanted to do as many games as I could. I used to do the Lazaroo League on a Sunday, which isn't a bad standard either. It's a really well-run league. Of course, you get the odd wrong in here and there, but you do it every level, even in the Cymru Premier. And then when you qualify as well, you get encouraged to join your local society. And it's funny, I walked into the first society meeting and our president, Ray, was in there, Rob Clark and Kev Russell, and I'd either been booked or sent off by all of those people. So that was a baptism of fire. I think, is Hicksy in the crowd? Yeah, Hicksy's booked me at some point as well. I'm sure he did. And I just never look back. Never look back. It's such a. I'm very proud to represent Cardiff, really, because there's not many. I aside from Ryan Stewart, who was the last Welsh Premier League referee, I'm now sort of carrying the can. And I think it's important for us as a capital city. I think we're the best referee society in Wales, and long may it continue. But a little bit of an introduction I was there. I work at Cardiff Metropolitan University, so UWIC, that's what I used to play for, obviously. So I work up there in the sport department, but I work in the education department as well. I kind of wear two hats. I used to play Tier 2. I think I played at Tier 2 for 12 years of my career. Never good enough to probably play in the Welsh Premier League myself, but a solid player for Tier 2. And I managed to get up through the leagues quite quickly, only because that's what I wanted to achieve. And I thought, until someone tells me I'm not going to go any further, I'll take it as far as I can. You know, if someone had said to me, you'll never get past Tier 3, or, you know, you're probably better off stay in local league, whatever, I would have been quite happy with that. I don't get touchy about things like that. I always remember when Roger Gifford came in to speak to us, one of my first meetings, all he said, now he does divide opinion, he is a bit of a Marmite character, but he is full of wisdom. I always remember him saying, just try and be the best referee at the standard you are. And I think amongst the younger lads, I think there's this, what's the word I'm looking for here? This desire to get up as quickly as you can. And you just got to enjoy the journey along the way. Enjoy every game as if it's your last. I mean, I certainly do. I'm very lucky to be, you know, I referee every game as if it's my last. And I'll never shirk a game. I'll go wherever I'm sent. I was telling Admin, Kane McLagan, who works for the FAW, plays for Barry Town. He gave me a bloody FA Trophy game a few weeks ago. Our first game I'd done without assistance for probably 4 or 5 years on a Friday night, but it was a proper Cardiff derby. It was Canton Libs against the Corries, proper roll your sleeves up job. There were quite a few people in the crowd. It was a Friday night game, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a real test. It was a test. There were lots of little personal battles going on. I never had ARs. I never had my comms headset, all those luxury things that I'm so accustomed to. They were thrown out the window for the 90 minutes. It was back to basics. So, you know, I'm no different to anyone else, but I am proud to have the title of a Cymru Premier League referee. This was a really important talk for me tonight, because I've been injured. I've been carrying an injury. First time I've ever been injured since I qualified as a ref back in 2014. And it's been tough, you know, quite ironic really, considering what I'm speaking about tonight, because when you're part of a team, you can still go along to training and watch, but it can be quite lonely on occasions. And I felt a little bit disconnected. I've been watching my teammates referee games on Scorio, and I've been turning off after 10 minutes because, you know, I've been a little bit negative and trying to find fault, only because I want to get back out there myself. So I've been watching more of my beloved Cardiff City, long-suffering fan. So that's been good. But my first game back now is on the 4th of December. So off the back of a calf injury, they're sending me up to Carnarvon. So 5 hours in a car. So thanks very much for that, but that's okay. Couple of things I want to talk through tonight, not so much about preparing to step up, just preparing to maintain, really, about stepping up, depending on what everyone's goals and aspirations are. We've got a nice cross-section of people in the room. We've got Mr. Harpo in attendance, who has observed me many years ago. The grassroots award that the society puts on is pivotal, I think. The BV Hinton Award. It's got a cup full of great names. I think I saw Hicksy's name on there as well somewhere. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Of course.
Yeah, he's on there. But again, Roger used to come out in all winds and weathers, send me fixtures, and I used to think he's never going to come up to Trelai Park on a wet and windy December afternoon. But lo and behold, he would be there, and it was good to get that your first experience of being observed, really, and people giving you feedback. Our Right Honourable Secretary has observed me in Lanisham Park, actually. He tried to go undercover, but he was the worst worst undercover outfit I've ever seen, ever. I thought, oh, that's I'm in from society over there. But again, just to have that mechanism in place right from the get-go. And we're very lucky in this society as well, because Rob Clark, who's not here tonight, does a lot of good work with the academy. So he's always willing to give people opportunities. For me, after just long qualifying, I'm working with assistant referees straight away, a good standard of football, albeit the youngsters, but you get used to work on your positioning, your communication, working with ARs, everyone having a feel for the game. So we're very lucky in that respect. And I've loved doing the academy games as well, because you get to see the young lads progressing, and there are a couple of lads at the moment who've made it into the first team. I went to Coventry away a couple of weeks ago, and there were three of the starting 11 I'd refereed since they were that big. And it's just nice to be a part of their journey as well. It's so rewarding in that respect. I'm going to talk about understanding others, our peers, our colleagues on a Saturday. Assessors, they're now called observers, but I've purposely left assessors in there because we do get a mark and a grading and everything. And I'm gonna use some clips, both good, bad, and indifferent from my journey so far. I put this on there. I'm getting on a bit now, as Val quite kindly pointed out earlier. So I'm probably at the level, well, I'm never going to go any higher, which I'm very lucky to be a Category 1 referee, but I'm never going to go overseas and become a UEFA official. I'm totally fine with that. It's my own fault for starting too late. You've got to live with that. However, the first about dealing with adversity, back in 2020, I was sat on my driveway, bags packed. I was off to Gibraltar on a refereeing exchange, and Phil Thomas, the unfortunately outgoing referees manager, phoned me. It was the middle of March. You can guess why I wasn't allowed to go. He said, "You haven't left for the airport, have you?" I said, "No, I'm just about to." He said, "You can't, trips off, COVID." We went into lockdown. And I thought, oh no. And I still haven't refereed overseas. I was due to referee Lincoln Red Imps, who play in the Europa League, at the pitch that's right next to the runway in Gibraltar. It's the Gibraltar Premier League. And I really felt like I had the carpet swept from underneath my feet. I put it in there because I thought, dealing with adversity, you could think, you could let it eat away at you and think, oh, why me, and this, that, and the other. But it was factors beyond anyone's control. Will I get it back? Probably not. But at least I was on the short list to go in the first place. So, I've got to get back to the bread and butter and do what I keep doing best, really. I think just from some of I'm actually writing a bit of research on refereeing at the moment, on female officiating. When I've been doing a little bit of reading around the evidence, a lot of researchers cite this idea of non-disclosure and refereeing. So you can see on the slide there, I think sometimes we maybe referee through fear. If we're on a run of bad games, bad decisions, it can affect us going into the next game. For me, whenever I used to make, well, I still do, whenever I make a huge mistake, I'm not the type of person that will go running for the hills. I want to get back out on the field of play straight away to try and put it right, to try and make it better. Whereas some people can let it eat away at them. Why me? What if it happens again? And I think you've got to be careful not to let that come across in your body language, because players pick up on things. They're stupid most of the time, because I used to be one, but you'd be surprised how they switched on to things like body language. And if you're not tuned into things, or if they think you're having a wobbly 5 minutes, they'll run with that and they'll trample all over it. And when I was an up and comer, this idea of perfection, I learned very quickly. There is no such thing as a perfect refereeing performance ever, I don't think. So for me, in my mindset, I go into every game trying to establish progress rather than perfection. Always trying to improve, advance. And there's a lot of devil's advocate in refereeing, isn't there? Or would anyone do anything differently? I think sometimes, well, what's wrong with just saying, yeah, that's probably the right course of action for what we've seen? You haven't always got to go changing everything, of course. And I think for us as referees, match officials as well, there's no harder learning curve than the field of play. We don't have the opportunity. We can go out on a football pitch and run around and train, but you could get actors in to simulate the thing, but there's no harder learning curve than 22 players in a match situation, and you've got to make those decisions. And unfortunately, we don't get the benefit of VAR in Wales, or hindsight, or the chance to rescind decisions. It just plays in your mind directly after the decision's been made, whether it's the right one or not. But I think sometimes as well, we're too scared to admit that we're vulnerable, or if we're on a bit of a bad run of things, because the evidence says if you are willing to be accountable and admit things aren't going well, that will lead to growth in you, because you're able to grow from your experience. I'm a big believer in experiencing something. You can have clips shown until the cows come home, until you've lived through a decision or something. That's how you'll learn. You'll never do it again. And I'll show you some of the many mistakes that I've made in a short while. But when I first got onto the Cymru Premier, I was burdened a little bit by a fear of failure, because I didn't want to let my colleagues down. There's TV cameras at every game. The level of scrutiny, people and fans are quick to judge. They'll put stuff up on social media. You are under the spotlight. But for me, I knew what I was signing up for. And, you know, this fear of failure, I used to think, oh, please go well, you're going to get demoted and all that rest of it. The hardest game I've ever done in the Cymru Premier was the first game I ever did. Now, that's not to say there's going to be loads of bumps in the road for however long they keep me there. That's absolutely fine. There's going to be loads. But that very first game, nothing will ever come close to that. I've got some clips from it in a short while, but I remember most of the 90 minutes. And it was an evening game at Jenner Park. It was Barry against Haverford West. And I remember still being in bed the next morning at, I think it was 4:10, replaying stuff over in my mind because of this idea of perfection. And I still get a bit jittery after night games. I don't get to sleep straight away, but I've never been like that ever since. Just off the back of some of the research that I've read, whether we think it or not, whether it's in our conscious or subconscious, these are some of the things that can happen as a result of refereeing. Maybe some of the abuse we make, whether we make bad decisions, whatever it may be. Distress, anxiety, sleep disturbance, more worryingly, things like eating disorders. So you can imagine that being at the end of the game, where every part of the spotlight's on you. It's not just on the pitch, it's off the pitch, your dietary habits, your training. You know, we all have a watch. We have to train 2-3 times a week, and we upload our data. If we're not doing what we should be doing, you get a warning email, and you get pulled over the coals and all that. So I quite like that, because I think we should be accountable. If you're referee in the top league in your country, you should be accountable. You should be training, but that's just my view. And then we've got alcohol misuse as well. I don't know if that relates to after the game or whatever, but referee well-being. These are some of the things that are really important to me and help me to continuously improve as a referee. Sense of belonging. I said to you at the start, I'm disappointed I can't come to every single society meeting, but I always try and come when I can. And I love being part of Cardiff Referee Society first and foremost. And then I've got my refereeing colleagues who I work with on a weekly basis. But this idea of self-esteem, it is nice. It is a bit of a buzz when things go right. And you don't need to go shouting from the rooftops. Everyone else will do that for you. And my goal is never to be a world beater when it comes to referee. And I'm not that type of referee. What I like is just bumbling along. So if you think in marks terms, I don't want to be an 8.6. I don't want to be a 7.8. 8.3s, 8.4s, just bump along. A little bit of coaching advice here or there. You could do this. That's all I want to be. A steady pair of hands. Nothing, you know, I think the biggest compliment a referee can get is when an appointments officer or whoever does it gives you a game and says, oh, you know, I want you to do this game because you're a safe pair of hands. I think that's the best compliment anyone can ever have. It's not about a cup final. I always get given the Cardiff derbies, which is a backhanded compliment. you forget about Cymru Premier, going when STM were in existence, get down to the Willows and do Bridgend Street against STM when there's 300-400 lads from Cardiff watching their two teams. It's a cauldron, but there's no greater feeling than walking off, knowing that you've got 22 handshakes, you've maintained player safety, and you haven't affected the result. Of course, there's going to be little bits and pieces underneath all of that. So, I still feel the buzz now. There's nothing, and being injured lately has taught me even more to appreciate things. I'm getting on a bit now. I'm pushing 40. So I've had to incorporate things now into my training, and I've taken for granted things like mobility, a little bit of yoga. That's funny, in my front room watching yoga with Adrian on YouTube, doing all that sort of caper, which has been good for my recovery. And I'm going to keep doing it because I want to referee for as long as I can. I've just got a quick question, right? What do you think causes referees to feel distressed, do we think? Now, we're all taught, aren't we, from day dot, that if you're having an observer, don't change the way you referee. That's a load of tosh. Everyone does, because if you've had someone before and you've read your report, you want an easy life, so you're going to do what they've said, basically, where you can, not everywhere. There are certain things I'll never do. But if we're talking little fiddly stuff, just to please the man in the stand, then you do it. That's human nature. Because why would we, especially if you want to progress, why would you want to pass up an easy opportunity to gain marks? It's not so easy for me because the cameras at every game. So that's the best and the worst, really, because they can get you out of jail, the cameras, but they can also throw you into jail as well. And there's two sides to that. Any of the lads there? Pressure on ourselves to get decisions correct. Yeah, pressure on ourselves to get decisions right. I think that leads into what I said earlier about this idea of perfection, and it's funny, you can get you can get a throw-in wrong on the halfway line, right? But does that really matter? I think for me, the biggies are the most important. James works with me on a regular basis. I always say in my pre-match, let's not worry about a piddly little throw-in on the halfway line. Either way, it can get a little bit animated if the throw-in's on the technical area side, but let's worry about the big, let's be tuned into the big decisions. And we're lucky because we have our headsets and we're talking constantly, and they're a real aid in that instance. And I class myself as a calm referee, and that comes across in my pre-match when we work together. But yeah, I think there are a number of different variables that cause us to feel distressed. I don't think that should happen. It's like common sense should prevail there, because if you go to the same restaurant every week, you're going to have a bad meal at some stage, isn't you? I think the chances are, and I don't know what everyone else does, but I keep a track on win percentages of the teams I referee, just in case if anyone ever turned around and said, "Oh, you've always had it in for us," and I could turn around and say, "Well, it's funny that because you've won 75% of the games that I've refereed you in," just as a comeback, for example. That could be, if you're a little bit younger and more inexperienced, I'm sure you'll be fine. But still, you don't want to be going there every week, and it only takes, like you say, one decision. The opposition score a goal that they will claim as offside, a late winner, and you've got to go back there the next week. That's no good for anyone. I get where Neil's coming from, though, because you don't want to be seen to be ducking a game type thing. But then on the flip side, you have got to protect yourself, and I wouldn't worry. The clubs aren't going to know you'll be there 3 weeks on the bounce. They don't know. Pardon? Oh, yes. I know. It's.
I was going to say, isn't that like a bit of, like, say, machoism comes into it? Like, as a referee, you seem to be backing down.
Of course we are.
But then, on the other hand, there was like self-protection.
But I'll probably divide opinion with this. If we say about being honest and stuff, and this probably gets some of my colleagues' backs up, I will always admit to a player when I've dropped one in a game, however big. The game ain't bigger than, I'm not bigger than the game. It's always aided my match control, because for me, when I've admitted a mistake, they've got nowhere to go. I remember a couple of years ago, I think Halesey was here on the game with me. I think we were at Undy against Cam Bryan, and Sam Jones is running across the box. and he got kicked inside the penalty area, but he stood up and carried on running. I did nothing. I took no action, which was the worst decision. It was a penalty just because he never fell over. And Dane, the cam manager at the time, quite rightly went ballistic. So the next goal kick, I was due to stand on the technical area side. I didn't go straight away. I just went over and said, drop one. I'm sorry, made a mistake. It was a pen. And he just shut up straight away. He had nowhere to go. Because I wasn't going to go, oh, the thing is, just went over and just totally nicked it in the bud. It wouldn't work for everyone, you know, but I do what I think is right. No, it was 0-0 at the time. It was 0-0. They ended up losing the game, actually, Clive. I know. So, but they shook hands with me after the game. As it turns out, they played quite poorly for the rest of the game. But then you never know, do you? I still have affected the result because that's classed as a key match decision at the time. But I got away with it. There was no observer there. But it played on and I was gutted after it because, you know, but all you can do is try and improve the next week and think, I'm not going to do that again. And I know the next time someone gets clearly kicked in the box but doesn't go down, I know that I'm going to give a penalty, which is good. So some good will come out of it. But, you know, I've put on there a key match incident. Thankfully, in my 2 years as a Welsh Prem ref, I've only had one key match incident. That was in my first game. I'm going to show you it in a short while. We haven't got VAR in Wales. There is talk of it. I'm going to come on to social media as well, because I think we're in a real bad place at the moment with people calling out refereeing decisions. I think there was a clip put on the group a couple of weeks ago. Was it Bristol Manor Farm? The coach being totally disgraceful to a referee walking off the field of play. You know, when we're seeing people coming out, everyone thinks they're the referee, and we're always shocking and all the rest of it. And we wonder if we don't take action within the next 5 years, there's not going to be enough referees to service the game. There's already a shortage in England, and there's some games being cancelled in North Wales at the moment. So it's an important couple of years to see what happens. These are just some of the things that I do, really. I think this isn't about being arrogant, but I do believe in my own ability. You know, I haven't always taken on board every observer's comments. I do a little bit of trial and error and what works for me. But the best bit of advice I can give anyone is always go with your gut feeling. My gut has never let me down. Well, it's correct 99 times out of every 100, I would say. And that's and Ray Ellingham taught me that when I first qualified, and it's something I've taken forward into it. If you referee with your gut, if something doesn't feel right, then have the courage and your conviction to stand up and do the right thing, and it'll work. It'll work for you. I still like perfectionism. I don't like that word, but I quite like realistic goal setting. So I've got goals that I set in the short, medium, and long term for every season. And it's just about continuous improvement as well. But I'm not too hard on myself anymore if things don't go so well. If I haven't. So when I first came on the league, I was, or whatever league I'm officiating at, I'm not so hard on myself, but I do try and understand the reasons why I made a particular decision to still improve. But I certainly don't spend hours and hours like I used to hankering over something, because you've got to park it and move on. Yeah, we only get one shot at the title, so to speak, on the field of play, and there's nothing you can do if you've made the incorrect decision. But one thing I'll always be, I'd like to think that Ailes's in the room as well. He works with me regularly, and James. I'm big on accountability. If I drop when I'll hold my hands up. There's no point in going running for the hills. Referees can get quite defensive. I'm sure you get this in your development group, James. If something happens, clips abandoned. Oh, but the thing is, it's this, it's that. Don't go digging the hole. Just hold your hands up. Hold your hands up and move on. So when I did make the step up from tier 2 to tier 1, or every step up I've made, really, at every level, there's a greater level of responsibility and scrutiny. The hardest games I've ever done were on the parks. Honestly, I'm not saying that to fluff anyone. They're the hardest games for me. Go down to the docks in Cardiff. I think Tony, he's not here tonight, Tony Roberts. Every time Zenith used to play St. Mellon's Old Boys, he'd stick me on the game. And that was like a simmering undercurrent, it would have gone off at any stage. It was like, I used to come off there thinking, surely I'll be on the Queen's New Year's honours list this year because no one's died this week. Really hard games on a number of different levels. Your communication and man management, or people management first and foremost. I think that was the most important part. It wasn't so much the decision making, but they were some of the best games I've enjoyed doing. So I'm lucky on a Saturday now. I get 3 colleagues to help me out and dig me out of the shit every week, which is great. I never had that then. You're there on your own. But belonging with colleagues, that's important for me. And again, you can have it's like any form of organisational life, isn't it? You can have people you like and prefer working with versus people you're not so fussed on working with, but you've got to get on with it at the end of the day and be professional. But the level of scrutiny, like I said, I knew what I was signing up for. Of course, observers, your peers and the cameras, but players and coaches as well. Because in the Welsh Prem, there's a lot of money floating about. There's a lot of money at stake for European places. So, of course, they're going to be looking at you. If you've made a mistake or things haven't gone their way, then they're going to start pointing fingers, and rightly so. So you've just got to make sure you're performing the best that you can and giving them no excuse to come and challenge you. There's no better feeling. And I'm going to Carnarvon in a couple of weeks, but I did them last season, and their manager Hugh Griffiths, he's a vocal character, and I've refereed his team when they've got hammered, and he's come over and said, "Excellent, you were brilliant today," and they've just been stuffed by the opposition. No greater compliment for me, that. And you know when you've done well as a referee, when the opposition, the losing team, 22 handshakes, no complaints, and you move on. That's all you want. And I think sometimes, again, with this is just my view, I care about what players and coaches think about me. I personally do. Some of my colleagues don't. They're quite happy to come off the field and fine. And I totally get that. That's fine, and I respect it. But for me, my view is it's important, but it's important for my style of refereeing that I have a good relationship with players and coaches. Not everyone subscribes to that view, but I think I'm going to be around a long time. We don't hold grudges, however things pan out in the 90 minutes, because I want to have a good rapport with people. That's just, some people may see that as a weakness, but I don't. So this first clip, I've done loads of fourth officials previously, but this is my first in the Cymru Prem. I've got a... Here we go. Curtis Hudson, Cam Sefyll, Kate McLagan gyda mynd un am. Nech Cryf. A mae ail Gerdyn Melin I Cestyn Davies. A'i ben yn ei ddwylo. Ond mae'r seintiau lawr I 10. Cerdyn coch i'r eilydd. 16 munud mae wedi bod ar y car. A mae Dean John wedi dangos y Cerdyn coch. Dean John yn cael gair gyda y dyfarnwr cynorthwyol y Llymanwr. Dipyn o ddadle ar y car nawr. Wel, mae'n newid y penderfyniad. Dyfarnwr cynorthwyol yn gweud taw Routledge oedd yn heiddi'r Cerdyn Melin. Nid Cestyn Davies yn cael yr ail Cerdyn Melin. So, I just explained the background to that. You can see mistaken identity there straight away. The referee is a hero of mine in refereeing circles. That's Dean John from Swansea. He used to be my refereeing mentor. I'll come on to mentoring in a short while. I think the guy, just my view, he's been Wales's best and most consistent referees over the last 10 to 15 years. But I was fourth official on the day, and you can see what happened there. Mistaken identity. Cestyn Davies for TNS had already been cautioned, and Dean thought he was the perpetrator there, but there was a second collision. It was John Routledge who probably switched on to that. I can see Neil nodding. Mistaken identity. So we got the feeling straight away. I personally didn't have a good view here, because I had the view that Gavin Chesterfield had from Barry, and he was convinced it was Cestyn Davies. But the TNS bench are going berserk at this point, because they've got a different view. They've seen that it's John Routledge, and Lewis Edwards, who is a FIFA assistant referee, outstanding, was over the comms straight away. Mistaken identities, John Routledge. Job done. All right. You can see the Barry players a little bit frustrated there. But, you know, this is about psychology and resilience. I came away from that game. There was about 30 minutes left in that game. And I come away thinking, but Dino was just totally unshakable off it. It's like he didn't care. It's like, oh, well, I made a mistake, but then I corrected it and everyone's happy. And he just brushed it off and got on with it. And there was no other talking, but refereed the game perfectly brilliantly for the last 30 minutes. So what I learned from that is it doesn't matter if you make a mistake straight away, but it was corrected. It was the fact of how he dealt with it. And I took so much faith from that. I'm thinking, well, if he's doing things like that and he's able to get over them straight away, then I can learn from that straight away. And there's no better place than being on the side watching that. You know, Dean's just come out recently and said that he's retiring at the end of the season after a long and glittering career. And, you know, I think Dean would have been a FIFA referee if it wasn't for Lee Evans up north, because they were the same age and all the rest of it. But Roger Gifford, who put them both up to the Welsh Prem, said year on year that Dean was the best referee that he'd seen that particular season. But the point being, what I'd learned from that clip, really, and I've taken that mantra forward into my games as well. This is my first Welsh Premier League Cymru Prem middle game, going all right, a few bits and pieces. On around 70 minutes, this happens. Have a little look, see what you think. Tegid's not allowed to answer this, or James, because they've seen it before.
Yeah. Penalty, yeah. Challenging for the ball.
Sanction?
At that time,
it was a genuine attempt for the ball, but the sanction was a yellow card, but basically it's a penalty. Why do you think I didn't give it? Because I saw it.
Was you holding the ball? No. It was so close to, it was going to go in, wasn't it? Ball watching.
No, exactly what it said there. He got a shot off. So in my head, I'm thinking, please hit the back of the net, please hit the back of the net. But he got clobbered after the ball. And then he didn't score. Mike Lewis saved it. And then he's looked round. I'm thinking, well, you're not having two bites of the cherry in my head. And we play on. And I didn't think much of it at the time. And after the game, I thought, oh, that didn't sit right. And we had the debrief online because this was COVID last season. And Ray was the observer. And he went, what happened on 70 minutes? Was there, something happened in his way. I thought, oh yeah, I said he just got his shot off, and he went, oh, okay. We were still waiting for the clips, and he knew what had happened, and I knew what had happened. The clip came through, and when I saw the clip, I was like, oh, it's a penalty, it's a yellow card for a reckless tackle, and that was it. The game went okay. There were a few other bits and pieces, but I had what's known as a key match incident, a KMI, and you instantly lose 0.5 of a mark. So I walked away with a 7.9. I would have had an 8.4, but that's a big decision that I got wrong. Haverfordwest went on to lose the game 2-1. So that was the game where I knew it was a penalty. That's why I was up till 4:10 in the morning. And I thought, oh no, first game, you've been KMI'd in your first ever Cymru Premier middle. I was at the crossroads. Do you throw the towel in and say, oh, I can't be dealing with all this scrutiny and losing sleep, I'm not enjoying it? I did enjoy it. And I wanted to improve, because that was just one incident out of the 90. There was some good stuff that happened as well.
Yeah.
But there are challenges like that. You know, if you watch the EFL highlights, there are challenges like that in League Two every weekend. And the players don't even moan. They just think, oh, I've got... Yeah. But like Amin said there, you wouldn't even get I got a shot off. You wouldn't... Don't be that's another great nugget we've heard many times over. Don't be the only person to see something. Okay, I've been, you know, I'm not ashamed to admit, I've been in a wide position, and there's been an ever so slight bit of contact on a defender, and the ball's crossed the goal line. I thought, thinking, that's a corner. I just wait half a second, and even everyone, the attacking team, are just running back. Yeah, goal kick, play on. And no one says anything. I'm scratching my head sometimes thinking, but don't be the only person to see something. What if I then give the corner And then the player's already been booked, and he says, that's never an effing corner or whatever. And then I have to...
Can you sleep better at night?
Because it's insignificant, isn't it, really? No one's...
That could raise the temperature.
When does it become significant?
But I said, I never said I was convinced. I said, oh, maybe there was a touch. That's the thing.
You were waiting for player reaction.
Yeah, and that's that can tell a decision sometimes as well. Player reaction. I think so. They'll tell you if they feel aggrieved with something. So you say that about cheating and doing the right thing. I was coached when I first qualified that I've given a corner that 100% wasn't a corner, but I can't then go back on my decision. So I go to the back post, and then as soon as the ball's clipped in, you blow your whistle for a defence. Oh, he's pushing him, and you're gone halfway. Like I'm out there.
He's pushing, so
Yeah, of course, but there's no foul there. But that's so. Sometimes we have to balance the books a little bit, or be a little bit expedient with the rules, as Ray says. The laws of the game, it's not on a hard back. All right, they're subject to interpretation, I think. But you do make a good point. This happened after the penalty shout. You know, even at the time, just to suggest that I didn't want to let it affect me too much.
it didn't touch him.
No.
Still didn't touch him. But
It's just proximity of where it's at.
Yeah.
And it's an issue again. Same player that made that foul.
But my fourth official, Dave Morgan, very experienced referee. Amin's worked with him for many years. I ran in there straight away because, like Neil said, it was in the proximity of technical area. Not saying, you know, I'm a world beater there, but just basics really. Get in there, diffuse. There was no dissent, and that worked quite well. So that was just to give you that there was balance in the same game, that it wasn't a car crash completely. And then we moved to my second Cymru Premier game. This was up in Kevin Druids against Penabont. Do you want to see that one again? But I just... Would anyone have done anything different there?
You brought it back?
Hmm?
And you brought it back?
What for?
Well, obviously it was a foul. Yeah. Wait to look at the outcome, miss it and bring it back. Isn't that justice?
But he's got an unchallenged shot off. You can't have two bites of the cherry. It all depends. I mean, this was early on in the game, so the players are trying to get on with it by and large at this stage. I'd had no misconduct at any stage. Both sets of players were looking to score. Like Ben's a Cardiff lad who got fouled. He had a little moment, but they got up and got on with it, so I was quite happy with that one. However, like, I take your point. If it's a volatile game and there's a lot at stake, maybe if Penabont have got Kano in the play for him, who's a left foot dead ball specialist. Now, I could have quite easily given a free kick because he's more than capable of sticking it in the top bin. So I had a number of options there that I could have taken, but I just left it in. That got commended by the observer for trying to let the game breathe, playing a good advantage, and I actually stopped the caution for a promising attack because the promising attack wasn't stopped. If I'd stopped the game, would I have had to have issued a caution for the promising attack, not for a reckless tackle? So sometimes we can help ourselves, and I've saved the player a caution there, hopefully. Same game. What did I do wrong there? I got pulled up for that, basically.
Which is right.
Health. 1, 2, as you said with the first one, 1, 2, 3, and wait. The point I'm trying to make, same game, both advantages, but inconsistent. One worked and one didn't. I thought, well, I'll stop the game. It's the middle of the park where they had an overlap on the right-hand side. So that's a clear advantage. It's the clearer one, but I'm so fixed. Neil said they were quite rightly spotted. They were 2 fouls. and maybe that clouded my decision-making process, because I've let one go, I've let two. Instead of just staying relaxed and opening your body and looking and just waiting 1, 2, 3. And the guidelines with advantage, if you think of a pitch in thirds, defensive third never, middle third sometimes, attacking third always. Well, I don't always subscribe to that either because of team tactics these days. Teams, even in the Welsh Premier League, which isn't Serie A, they like to play out from the back, believe it or not. So maybe they can start a quick, they've worked on something, we'll get out to right back, who's going to spray a diag to their left-sided player who's bombing. If you're switched on to that can work as well. So there's so many variables at stake here. And, you've got to look at each game on its merits. And the two examples there, one was a good, I saw it as a great advantage. Yeah. And that one's that's an easier one to play than the first one, really, because I know, but it's crap though, isn't it? You know why, but it's crap. I was lucky enough, I'll never forget it. I don't care if I never do another game again, but I refereed Cardiff City and Newport County in the summer at the CCS, and COVID restrictions meant there was only 3,500 there. There was probably only been 3,750 there anyway, but it's the easiest game of football I've ever done. Of course, it's pre-season. They don't want to lay a glove on each other. They've got long, tough seasons ahead. But it was just the best experience I've ever had as a referee. But it's just to tune into what you said about, like you say, that standard, lots and lots of interplay, lateral football, sideways, lots of possession games. It was just a joy. But like you said as well, this was my second game, so still learning. Well, we're always learning. If you think you've made it, then you will fall foul very quickly. So you've said about positioning here, and I've shown a clip about a penalty stroke, no penalty. Have a look at this clip and see what you think. Gyflym dros Benner am ddiffyn, a mae Reid yr eilydd. Wedi cyrraedd, mae John Owen yr eilydd arall yn aros yn y canol. Jamie Reid, derbyn cic, derbyn, gael ei faglu ac Adam Smortyn, mae'r dyfarnwr yn pwynto. Cyfle am bedwaredd fan hyn. Jamie Reid a munud I fynd. But it's exactly what you said about just being calm. I'd been through a penalty, no penalty shout before, and I was better equipped to deal with it. I'll come on to fitness in a short bit, but Rogers and Amin have picked up on this as well. Any level I've ever refereed at, the consistent thing has been fitness throughout. So I'll never be found wanting in that. And it was picked up by the Observer in this because that decision was made in the 87th minute. And Amin said about it was a counter-attack, and I was able to get into the A1 position, and not be tired to make an incorrect decision. So I was still switched on for the 90 minutes. But the point I was trying to make is progression. Again, how the improvement's been there. Same game. This was from April, just gone, April this year. Thoughts? So I didn't give the penalty. Sean? Red card.
No, I can't really see it too well on the phone. I'm on my phone.
Hey,
quite small and blurry.
I missed it. I was doing my job, sorry.
Bloody hell. He's like on a line. I know. So anyway, it wasn't a penalty. Handball is been subject to change, hasn't it, a few times over the last couple of seasons. Clarification last year where handball is now from the bottom of the armpit across and below. But there's other criteria as well. Is the player's hand in an unnatural position? Is the player moving their hand towards the ball? The Val quite rightly pointed out the distance between the player. And I said about gut feeling earlier. I think if we forget about the laws of the game now, I think we all know when a handball is a handball. All agreed? But what I wanted to demonstrate between the clips is progression. And then this is the underside of things that we spoke about earlier. So first game of the season, it was a boiling hot day. I was up in Kevin Druids again against Barry. And I'm not online. I don't use social media at all. I'm not on there. But you can have a little nose. You can go on to Twitter or what have you and type in, because that's where our clips go for Scorio. So I was looking at my highlights. And there's comments underneath, and this is one of them. Now, Barry won the game 4-1. I had one caution for a Kevin Druids player in the whole game. It's probably the easiest game I've done in Tier 1. And this is what a Barry fan wrote about me after the game. But what I couldn't believe in my head after it was totally insignificant. There was nothing controversial in the game. His team won 4-1. I'd had one caution. There was no dissent. There was no misconduct from anyone. The caution was mandatory for Kevin Druids. It was just totally bizarre. I'm thinking, yeah, but you know what we said earlier about being vulnerable? Not vulnerable, but I'm not going to stand up here and say, oh, I'm Teflon, I don't get what people think, because I do. And that's me being honest. I stewed on it for a day or two.
Well, at least he's got it spelling once.
I thought you were going to say at least he's got it all right. No, but listen, you're not. But then I've had the other side of it on. Not that I've ever asked for it, but I have had a look, and there's more teams like me than don't, and fans like me than don't like me. So, but still, regardless,
it does affect you.
100%.
Especially my.
So the best thing I could have done was I'm in another WhatsApp group with my best friends. The best thing I could have done was send that to them, because you'd like to think you get support off them instead of the barrage of abuse, laughing emojis, to the point where it settled me down type thing. But I'm not going to stand up here and say, oh, it didn't affect, because it did affect me. It didn't affect me going into my next game, but for 24 hours or so, I was thinking the cheeky so-and-so. So again, I'm just revealing a little bit of a sensitive, I think we've all got a sensitive side in us on occasions. But then in your head, you're thinking, what did I, and I'm thinking then, what would he have said if I'd have had an absolute mare type thing? But this is the underside of referee, and she's not here tonight. But Michelle had a terrible set of events at one of her games recently at Tier 2, where the club was actually fined for not fit at controlling their fans. Totally unwarranted, sexist comments. You know, we're one of the only ref societies in Wales to have a female match official operating at a Tier 2. And she wanted to throw the towel in afterwards. She just didn't want to do it anymore. Imagine being made to feel like that just for going to a game of football. And we, you know, not so much James, but young lads just starting out on their journey on the parks at Cardiff. Like, what message is that sending? And we've got a duty to, you know, look after each other and get more people picking up the whistle, because without us, there's no game. You know, it's a shame. I've just put this up. This is from, because I've given a bit of a progression, haven't I, to say I've made a few mistakes early on, and then I got a little bit better. I've got better as I've gone along. This was from just before my injury this season. I refereed Newtown and Carnarvon, right? I refereed really well, but the observer thought otherwise. So an 8-2 isn't a horrendous mark. It is to me. Sometimes you'd rather have a 7-9, 8-4, a key match instant, than an 8-2, because the 8-2 means there are several areas you need to improve on. There were no cameras there this night, yes, Val? I had 3 cautions in the game. That was it, all for players on the field of play. That was it. The point being, when you think you're going along nicely, nice and smoothly, there's sometimes people can put obstacles in your way, and it's just unnecessarily so, but you've got to dust yourself down and get over it. And this was my last middle, actually. So they say you're only as good as your last game. But I knew, well, there's another point moral to this story as well, in the fact that I know in my heart of hearts that I had a good game. So I take more faith from it. And I would tell you, if I was an 8-2 game, I'd tell you. Okay. And I've been on, he's not here tonight, Brooklyn, but he's been on other games with me where something similar's panned out. But, you know, I've worked with Darren for years now, and he'll tell you, if I've had one, I'll tell him. We'll talk. He'll know in the dressing room straight away. You know, we work together loads. We got a good relationship. There was a game a couple of years ago, and I was at Tier 2, and we had a decision. Darren flagged for an offside. The team went on and scored, and then he called me over. We didn't have comms, but he listened to my pre-match. So I said, try and let play stop if you can before we restart play. So they went on to score, raised his flag because he thought it was an offside, but the Cam Bryan defender had played the ball. It was a play by the defender, which he didn't see because it was a minor tear. I went over and had the conversation, gave the goal, and we moved on. Do you remember that, Daz?
Yeah, that was the same Andy Cam Bryan game.
It was the same game, yeah.
Yeah, it was about Andy.
So there we go. There are two decisions. I didn't give the pen against Sam Johnson that I spoke about earlier, and then I did get a correct decision, disallowed goal. I gave the goal, sorry. So again, you know, sometimes they come along like buses, big decisions, but we're making or not making decisions every second of every game. You know, when we decide not to give a decision, that's still making a decision. So I was on the line. I held a flag for he's not here, but my very first line in the old Welsh League was to Mr. Pedler up at Cardiff Met. I think they played Pontypridd. He did well, Mike, but don't tell him. He won the bad ref. But we won't tell him that. Is this going up on YouTube? He'll be all over this, Peds, won't he? But like some messages, really. I just want to thank everyone for listening to me. I appreciate I rabbited on. I do appreciate everyone coming. I love talking about refereeing. Regardless of your age, experience, I hope it was interesting and someone at least got a little bit of pause for thought. Take-home messages is more for the young bucks, like James and Tegged. Sorry, Daz, you're young as well. Just to get in there. But train or do as much as you can for the level that you referee at. Do what you need to do to referee at the level that you do. Like pick up the phone. We spoke about the WhatsApp group, what a valuable resource that is. And pick up the phone to people as well. I'm a big advocate of mentoring. Like mentoring has been around for hundreds of years, and it's just been brought back in formally into the police force, for example, because of staff sickness and people off on stress and anxiety, because it's a hard profession to go into. But they brought in a mentoring scheme now where more experienced officers are able to advise the younger ones. And I think, you know, what's the harm in picking up I would love it if someone phoned me up and asked my view on something. And the beauty about advice is you take what you want and leave the rest. I never insist on anything. I would just say, well, this is what I would do, or some of the things that I would do. Well, what a great thing to finish on, really. Just one game in isolation, you've had a toughie, and picking up the phone to someone and say, oh, so-and-so was hard today, or 8 was a pain in the arse. He hasn't been like that before. I didn't get the rub of the green and things. There was a catalogue of things happened today that don't normally happen to me. And just a little bit of reassurance, having that safe space. And you haven't got to go venting it in public and putting it online on Facebook groups or whatever. Like Sean said, they're just having a trusted friend, and that could happen, I suppose, in some sort of mentoring scheme, whether formal or informal. But good point to finish on. Thank you to everyone for listening.
Diolch yn fawr, and thank you for watching the presentation. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.